The controller on the 3DS, like
the C stick was awful.
Yeah, it was not good for like anything twitchy was a little weird. But yeah, that's
a little nubbin. Call it the little nubbins.
I'm not a fan of the nubbins.
Hi there, and welcome to the JRPG Pursuit, a podcast for all things JRPG. I'm Emily.
I'm Branden.
I'm Abdallah.
And today we are talking about action RPGs and kind of like the history of action RPGs and where we think this little subgenre of RPGs are headed. So I think we have quite a fun episode ahead of us. Before we start, I wanted to just go ahead and thank our members who are kindly subscribed to us and on the Discord and who also have the extra video content available to the pursuer level. So it's basically like double our content. We always have just so much stuff to talk about after we record these episodes. So all the stuff kind of goes
way too much
in those little after shows.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about this week. Anyway, action RPGs. Who wants to start us off and kind of lead us into the history maybe of where this subgenre started?
I'm happy to jump in at the beginning because I coincidentally was grabbing some footage from like an extremely old Falcom game last night for a video. And,
which one?
Dragon Slayer. But it was the Game Boy port. So it actually came out in 1990, but it was based on a,
the PC-88 or something like that?
Something, yeah. Like, and Falcom has been around and doing action RPGs since like the early 80s. Like, it's crazy how far back they go if you really dig into their history. But yeah, I mean, in the olden days, right, you had action RPGs that were, you know, more or less they used that sort of bump style combat. You see that in the early Ys games. You see it in the aforementioned Dragon Slayer, which we never got, but was pretty terrible. Let me look. Okay.
How was your experience?
Risk of editorializing too much here. I did not have fun grabbing that few minutes of footage of Dragon Slayer. I probably just didn't know what I was doing. I know I definitely
had to start somewhere, you know?
Yeah,
it's true.
But it's great to see, like, and that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it's like this is so simple, but also frustrating and really difficult. And you know, then you move to Ys where you had the same kind of bump system, but it was like leaps and bounds better. Having played the original first Ys 1 and 2, not the original, but the PSP ports. Having played those, it's still so much better than where they had come from. And other games in the early era use that sort of bump combat. I'm thinking of Hide Glide. Dalla, we've seen Hide Glide.
Classic.
That's a staple of our game hunting trips.
It's
because
true.
I passed it up one time, and then ever since then, and like, we need to get Hide Glide, and now I don't see it anymore.
I think you passed it up last time at Midwest Gaming Classic.
Did we
as well? Yeah,
Whoops.
I feel like you pass it up every time. Like, you got me to buy it that one time, and then you're like, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it next time, I swear. And then you just never do.
And then I guess trick myself into thinking I've never seen it since then. But anyway, Hide Glide, famous for being terrible, but use that kind of bump style combat as well.
Yep.
And you get to a point in the NES life where you start seeing more action in your action RPG. It's kind of weird, right, to call early Ys and Hide Glide and games like that action RPGs, because I guess you're moving, but like, you're not attacking in any kind of way that would be recognizable to us today. You're just kind of standing there. But yeah, I just think it's interesting how that was like cutting edge gameplay for a while. Was move up to a bad guy and just kind of stand there and hope that your stats were higher than theirs.
The biggest fun of that is just like, you have to get it right at that nice like diagonal angle
for Ys. Yeah,
for
you got
Ys
to come in at the diagonal, and then you don't take any hits.
Exactly, which is it's not as easy as you think it is.
I'm sure they also planned around that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Further into their franchise there.
Yeah. And
then moving on from that, you had the Zelda 2 approach, or the way they did East 3, Wanderers from East, which was the side-scrolling action RPG, where you had, RPG elements, RPG mechanics in there, and what we would consider to be RPG mechanics, right? Experience points, money, things like that. And for a while, we had quite a few side-scrolling action RPGs. A lot of them, again, from Falcom, right? You had Xanadu, Fa Xanadu for the Nintendo, which I loved. I could never get past like the first dungeon in that game, but I just loved that. It was like, and it was all brown. It's like one of the ugliest looking games. It's like just brown and yellow. It's like toilet colors, but like, but it's like, I still loved it. Like, I just
like
love
the
that
PS3
game.
era colors.
Yeah. They were ahead of their
NES
time
with composite like quality. So it's
Scan
like all muddy. It's all muddy looking.
Yeah. But yeah, so they put out a lot of games in that, Battle for Olympus. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Something about Olympus. It was like basically a Zelda 2 ripoff.
Yeah.
Did any of these have like platformer elements too?
There were some of them did have, like Fa Xanadu definitely did. Zelda 2 kind of, but it was much more straightforward, move a direction, stab an enemy.
Mm-hmm. Pause.
Sorry, I was conducting the symphony and then I stopped and took a swig.
I thought you were like you're in mid thought and then you just stopped and took a swig and I was like, oh, okay.
My mistake was I didn't end on a down. I ended on an up.
Yeah.
I
was waiting to see.
You're like, oh, he's got a thought. We'll let him finish his beverage and then he'll continue with his thought. No, that's it. Thoughts ended.
That's all, folks.
Thoughts over.
Episode is done. That's all we got. No, but I feel like like a lot of the like leading up to the NES era, it was very like primitive in terms of like you look at these action RPGs were more or less along the line of just kind of side scroller-ish type games, and like on the PC you'd get more elaborate things like with ease and stuff like that. But you really it wasn't until like the SNES you started to get like more like action RPGs as we see it now, I think, right?
Yeah, I think they became a lot more numerous during the Super Nintendo era. There were some, I don't want to overlook them in the 8-bit, like Crystallis, for example.
Oh, yes.
Feels really ahead of its time in terms of the complexity of it and the different systems and magic and things that you can use in that game. Yeah. It does, I won't say that it holds up. Like, I don't know if you are, if you're okay
it's
with
been ported on multiple systems. Like
it
I think
has,
it was on the Game Boy, right? And
there was a Game Boy Color port remake or whatever, probably just a port. That was I think pretty well received. So so Crystallis, and if you want to look at like the original Zelda as action adventure, but a lot of mechanics from that game would be used by
in action
more traditional RPG developers, action RPG developers in the future. So
it's, I think, fundamental, to helping develop those.
I know if you call Zelda an RPG, some people get very upset. And look, I'm not here to make anybody upset, so I'm not going to say that.
We don't like to pigeonhole games.
No.
But at the same time, everyone's going to get upset over something we say.
Always something.
We can't fight that. But I think like Zelda is basically like a perfect example of like a game that has like the mechanically plays like a lot of the action RPGs. And that's like one of the first games that I really like fell in love with outside of like, playing Mario and things like that. Like the first game that felt like an adventure, which is, know, what you'll see in like a lot of the other action RPGs out there.
Here's something that I said to my mom when I was 5. I think I was 5 or 6. And we were on our first plane ride to California. We were going to Disneyland to visit family. And I looked out the window when we were up in the air and I looked down and I was like, Mom, that looks like the Zelda map. And I have very distinct memories of having said that and her being like, what? What are you talking about?
The reaction to that is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have a distinct memory of getting Zelda. It was, I got a loose tooth that wouldn't wouldn't come out. And so I went to the dentist to like, they had to like yank it out. And directly after that, we went straight to Funkoland, and I picked up The Legend of Zelda there. And so like, it's like a distinct memory of like, I remember getting my tooth pulled and then going straight to go play at home. Legend of Zelda.
No dent setsu. You know what I'm saying? I really kind of had to reach for that one, but thank you.
You know what? Yeah, I'll take it. I'll let you have it.
Yeah, I think definitely the top-down Zeldas are like that. I started with the Oracle games, and then A Link to the Past GBA ports. Definitely, you have the action combat that we've seen in a lot of action RPGs.
Which can we just take a moment and appreciate Link to the Past just for a minute?
Yes, of course.
Like, people will argue about the best Zelda game of all time. Some folks nowadays will say, Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda game of all time because it's true to the original where you can go anywhere and do anything. And I say poo to that. Poo to that. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Just it's the best Zelda game. It's barely a Zelda game. Poo to that. Zelda 64, Ocarina of Time. Great. I loved it. Had a fantastic time with that game. But I don't know. I feel like you can
3DS version.
Yeah, I feel like you could make a really strong argument for A Link to the Past as being the best Zelda game and like the defining Zelda game.
I feel like that's like just an accurate statement at this point. I feel like a lot of people who grew up with Link to the Past or have played Link to the Past ever, like, as they got older, that game is just so ingrained as being a Zelda, like just the perfect Zelda game. It's always referenced. Everyone always talks about it. It is nostalgic as all hell. Like I put up a TikTok video and it like had I was playing Link to the Past and like the amount of people that like like was like, oh, that's nostalgic or like that thing. Like it was just like a lot of people were like, it is a lot of people's nostalgic game for that era.
So. Definitely. And beyond. Like I played it on the GBA at first and it was one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
It's a great game. And then Link Between Worlds is just as good, and people need to talk about that more because it's like a direct sequel to Link to the Past, and so you get like the same type of like you're going through Hyrule, the same Hyrule as Link to the Past, and you get this like more 3D-ish map, but it's not too 3D. Like it's like that perfect like era of like 3D where it's like
well it's like constructed 3D, right? If you were to move the camera down to like a front-on angle for all these people, they're going to be like the weirdest shaped creatures because they're designed to look good from that like 3/4
100%
angle.
And like going into the walls I thought was like such an innovative feature.
Such a fun
it's so fun.
I would love very much for that to come to modern platforms and be accessible. That would be astounding.
I really want them to bring that as like a port or whatever they need to do to bring that over to like the Switch.
Because buying 3DS in 2025 is expensive.
It's so expensive.
Doesn't matter which one it is.
I know.
They're all expensive.
Let me give Nintendo a tip. Let me give you a tip. If you want me and probably a bunch of other people to get on board with the Switch 2, which I'm not on board with right now, create an add-on second screen that sits up top and give us a 3DS DS library of games. That'd be cool. You got me. You hooked me.
They do have that little thing sticking out
or
the top.
They have that new app.
Before.
They have the app on your phone. So what if you could just mount your phone to the top of the Switch 2 and it pulls up like a...
It's not as seamless, but...
It's not as seamless, but like... You don't have to buy it.
I can see that maybe more as a Wii U pad.
Yeah, that's true.
But regardless, that's how you'd get me. That's how you'd get me. So
yeah, I mean, I'd be all for it. I mean, any way we can play 3DS games somewhere that is not on a 3DS at this point, because it's way too expensive.
They're not going to last forever, folks. They're not going to last
unless
forever.
they make like a retro, like they've been doing all those retro controllers. Maybe they'll have the retro systems come back.
That'd be nice.
Directly from Nintendo.
Directly,
be interesting.
3DS would be hard though. Just because of the level.
I mean, they would get rid of the 3D for sure. Like,
about that.
That's not necessary for most games.
Yeah,
you would just get rid of that for.
They just reissue the 2DSs again.
Yeah,
basically.
But anyway, we're
we're going off topic.
RPGs, Zelda again, debatable. So maybe we should. I just wanted to appreciate Link to the Past because on a
Consider it
strictly
appreciated.
JRPG podcast, we don't always have the most opportunities to do that.
It's true.
So anyway, action RPGs.
Action RPGs. So yes, we've talked about like the history of like, action RPGs, early history. And we can probably get into like I don't know if we want to go into like maybe the SNES era, or do you want to talk about your favorites within the retro
I think what
scene?
I think what you started to say, Dalla, about it being the Super Nintendo kind
Yes.
of being the origin point for most of what
Modern.
we think
Yeah.
about as modern action RPGs is something that's worth talking about.
Yeah.
You got the Quintet games.
And even those
famously-
games, like looking at the first Quintet game to the last, the evolution of those like styles of like action RPGs within that, like it's incredible to see. Like with the beginning of Quintet, which is the first one, is which one is that one?
If you're talking about the tetralogy, like Soul Blazer,
Soul
probably.
Blazer, yeah. So
Yeah,
that one is like pretty primitive. Like it's very like kind of a little rigid in action gameplay. It's a little bit more rigid. It's not as like seamless. But then when you get to like Terranigma, it is like you're
it's
flying
crazy.
around.
Yeah, the
you're
stuff
like,
you can do in that game.
it is incredible what they did.
Leaps and
like
bounds.
just like
I
within
said this.
yeah.
I don't know if I said this on Twitter recently or where maybe I was talking to you guys. I don't know what it was, but I was playing a little bit of that again to just grab footage, and I found myself just like I kept going. It's like I can't play this game again right now. I've got too many other things to do. But it's one of those that's just such a I don't know, such an achievement.
And
we
it's
didn't
so much
get it
fun.
over here. That's the crazy thing.
I
It's
know.
so crazy.
That's a game that deserves, we're talking about re-releases. Like
Yeah.
if we can get like an actual American version, like US version of that game, I'd be okay.
I wouldn't mind gung ho. Just that's our next one. There, bring it back.
Do a
If they
Quintet
want to
collection.
get on the Quintet, they could do the Quintet collection.
Yeah.
I'd be
That's
okay with
another
that.
freebie. We're just handing out freebies today.
Hey,
so.
ideas, guys, to get money from us and everyone around.
The time when we're not wanting to buy new games because they're
No.
expensive.
Because they're expensive.
We would pay top dollar, I think, for remasters of these expensive retro games to come back over here.
Yeah, because you can't even get. Terranigma.
No.
You can import
Well, isn't there
it,
a
but
PAL version?
there is a PAL version, but
Yeah.
then you have to import it, and then you got to fix up your SNES to play them and whatnot.
True.
So for the more like typical fans or typical people, like are not going to have access to that, or not going to have an SNES that's hooked up, maybe. So you have the emulation at the end of the day, which is that's like how most of us played Terranigma growing up.
That's how I played it in my mid-30s for the first time.
Yeah, no, I played that much early on. I think it was like probably in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Did
on
you
the
play it
Windows.
with a keyboard, or did you like have a controller you
Played it with a keyboard. That's the first time I played it was with a keyboard. I did play it with a controller later on down the line once I had controllers and stuff like that. But yeah,
I think that's the main reason I never got very far in any, especially action RPG on emulation, was just trying to
it's
deal
hard.
with the keyboard. I just couldn't do it.
No.
I know it was
So
not ideal.
I get like a 20-minute taste of a game and be like, okay, I gotta stop.
I can't even do Chrono Trigger on it.
I was,
Well, there's certain parts that you like almost literally can't because
You really can't.
Yeah,
It's awful.
yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I even played Chrono Trigger on emulator back in the day. I was like a crazy person with it. Like I would just keep going until I could get it right, even if it was awful.
But yeah, what'd you say Terranigma was like the later era of SNES or?
it was
Yeah.
pretty late.
So in between then, was there like some other games? Like when was Tales of Fantasia?
Tales of Fantasia, I think, was also fairly late
Late.
in the
so.
Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It did some really interesting
That's-
things that like
yeah,
most games didn't
fairly
do.
advanced.
They had like voiced dialogue in some
Yeah.
spots, I think, or at least a voiced song, which was
Yeah.
crazy.
I think it came out in like 95-ish, right? Because like, and then Sony, like the PlayStation 1 came out in like, what, 96, 97? I don't remember.
I don't know.
I can't
But yeah,
remember. But like, so it was pretty
Tales of
late.
Fantasia is an interesting one to talk about, just as in my mind, I always think of the Tales of series as this bridge between action RPGs as they always were and like more traditional turn-based RPGs, especially on the JRPG side of things.
Yeah.
Because the Tales of series is basically a standard RPG in every other way, except when you go into a battle, it's action-based. Whereas, any other game that would have the sorts of menus and town interactions and things like that you would find in a Tales game would be a turn-based RPG, especially at least up until those games started coming out.
Yeah.
So it's it's like the missing link between those two genres, sort of subgenres.
It's a good way to put
at
it.
the time, did people think of these as like JRPGs? Kind of linking back to our episode from last week. Like, because it used to be, right, that a lot of just turn-based games were considered JRPGs and action RPGs were its own thing. Even like when we talk about action RPGs now, we don't say action JRPG.
Right.
Often we just say action RPG.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I'd be curious to know if how it was thought of at the time, because because we never got it, for one thing. Obviously, I learned about it.
So I wouldn't have known.
I learned about it in Nintendo Power and was so excited. I was like, this looks like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then it never appeared, and I was sad. Along with Star Ocean. That was another one that I saw, I think in Nintendo Power. Maybe it was EGM, but one of those. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to be eating good. Everybody is going to be great. No.
Nope.
No.
Sorry.
I'm not going to get any of that. It was like, I don't know. Like, if I don't remember growing up the JRPG like nomenclature and how that was distinguished between action RPG at the time. Like, I cannot, like,
I didn't either.
I have no distinct
Even with Kingdom
memories.
Hearts, I had no idea. I was like, oh, this looks fun.
I don't even
It's got a
remember.
narrative.
I don't even remember when JRPG became a term.
Yeah.
I think I always just called them RPGs. Everything was just RPG.
Yeah.
I don't think if it had action, I don't think I would have called it an RPG, which would have been interesting. Would have been interesting
like
if I'd had
games, too.
Tales of Fantasia or Star Ocean at the time, how I would have thought of it, because
That's true.
I didn't consider anything that wasn't turn-based an RPG.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I would just play games back then. I was kidding.
That's what we did.
These are my games. No, but there was a lot of really fun games on the SNES across that, and that's when we started to see like a lot more I guess franchises starting to make be more popular and crop up and things like that. We had Ease starting to take a little bit of a more of a hold in that era, like just barely.
At least in Japan.
In Japan,
we didn't really,
Japan.
we didn't
Not
really
really
mess
the
around
West.
with East until
no.
PSP era.
I think, PSP, PS2. We had East 3, Wanderers from East.
That's what I was
But
thinking.
I don't think most people,
No one had that.
No.
East 3, like there's
was
two
on
other ones
people's
with these.
radar.
Ugh.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone with that game, so
No,
I didn't even know about it at the time.
I didn't know about it at all. I don't think.
Yeah, wasn't
How
until much
about
later.
PS1 era? Did we what was the distinguishing factor for action RPGs then, would you say? 'Cause
I'm actually,
when I think of RPGs, I always think of, the turn-based ones on that. system.
I honestly am struggling a bit to think of many action RPGs from that era. I mean, obviously, Quintet had Grandstrom Saga,
Yeah,
which is actually, it's funny and like the graphical presentation is very lacking, but the combat's, it's actually kind of fun. It's actually not bad. Like, you can tell that this was made by Quintet. It's interesting. It's an interesting game. I wouldn't mind spending more time with it.
yeah.
But it's not, it's not at the level of really any of their other games.
Yeah. I wonder if action RPGs, they weren't ready for the PS1, with the new graphical kind of upgrades.
Yeah, because
Like,
the only games I can think of outside of Grand Stream Saga is Threads of Fate, if you remember that. It's not fully an RPG, and it's a little more light RPG. I would
Action
say
adventure with RPG elements.
it has RPG elements, but it's not very specifically, but like the aesthetic and the vibes are more like RPG-esque.
Yeah.
But I remember that being like a really fun game. But then you didn't really get a lot of like action. I mean, you have like Alundra, which was like the big
Alundra.
one.
Alundra 2, which
Alundra 2.
you know, whatever.
Star Ocean, the second
Star
story.
Ocean, second story, yeah.
Which second story is a great game. So
It is.
I think we have that remade
exactly
on modern systems.
I feel like there was like a lot of like, I mean, and also Legend of Mana. Can't forget the Mana games.
The Mana games, yeah.
And Legend of Mana is one of my favorites, so that is something. But like, there wasn't a lot of, I think, for the PS1 era, because there's still just like, it was hard. I think like even the mechanics, the 3D space was probably the initial stages of that, and it was harder. You'd get a lot more platformers, like, you know, what was it called? Brave Fencer Musashi and things like that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder why that is. Because the action RPGs you did see on the PlayStation 1 tended to be 2D, or at least, you know, largely 2D.
Yeah.
Star Ocean Second Story had technically 3D backgrounds for the battles, but like the characters, it was all sprites. All sprite animation.
Yeah, exactly.
So I wonder if they just weren't at the level of competency with polygons yet to feel comfortable. I also
with the action,
with like making
there are action
it like
games on the
Twitch.
PlayStation.
There are
1.
action games, yeah,
and shooting games.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't
It's a
know.
little strange.
Maybe there's a bunch that I just didn't play. We apparently none of us.
Maybe they weren't good.
Maybe they weren't good. Maybe I don't know. If there are some hidden gems, if you're listening, please leave us a comment or send us an email or something. I would like to know of any hidden gem action RPGs on the PlayStation 1 that we overlooked, because I just don't feel like there were that many, but who knows?
Yeah.
I also feel, I'd be curious what you guys think about this, that in the early days, maybe, you know, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation era, maybe kind of some PS2, that action RPGs tended to be a lot more story light than turn-based RPGs. With turn-based games, you would have just sweepingly epic stories with big casts of characters
A lot of
and
lore,
lots of lore and like twists, and the plot was always like a major focus, where it feels like even a game from Square, like Secret of Mana, like it definitely had a story, but it's definitely not the level of focus on the story that you see in other games from Square in that Final Fantasy VI.
I wonder if it has to do with, you know, Zelda, because that never had huge narrative back then.
And it's also
they're
like
still kind of emulating that.
Yeah.
I think part of it's also budget, because like you can only pay so many people. Like, okay, so like when you're looking at making a JRPG with a turn-based game, you know that your audience is story heavy, like focused. They want something like a very sweeping narrative. So they put more effort and more funding into creating and writing a really like extensive narrative there.
And we're using assets for the turn-based.
Exactly. And so with an action RPG, you have to focus more on the gameplay. And so you put more effort into like having more developers who are focused more on like, is the gameplay tight? Like, does it play well? Is it a good game? Is it fun?
Get through those bugs.
Exactly. Because there's like, you can end up with a really like wonky action combat and then an okay like story, but then you just like,
they actually had to fix bugs on games back then. They couldn't just ship it.
Right.
I wonder kind of when the shift happened, right? Like you look at like a JRPG series or action RPG series nowadays, and they're like as story rich as anything.
Yeah.
You know, your Nier Automata, even Nier, the original Replicant or Gestalt, whatever, very story heavy games that were there a lot of story heavy action RPGs on PS2?
There were.
How story heavy is Radiata stories? Kingdom Hearts is a good example. That's very story heavy. Yeah.
I would say like Radiata stories is like, it's not like heavy narrative, but it's good. It's like it's a good narrative. It's just not like overly complex like Kingdom Hearts and things like that.
Yeah.
Like Dark Cloud 1 wasn't story heavy, but the second one had more.
Yeah.
You said Dark Cloud? That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, Dark Cloud. Okay.
Radiata stories
I know the
does
second
have
one
like
had more of a narrative.
Yeah, like Rowdy Out of Stories is more like, it's interesting because it's like it plays out kind of like an anime because it's got like a very anime charm to it where it's got a lot of jokes. It's very like playful in its storytelling with like it. So I guess it does put a lot of effort into that aspect. I think like it does like to have an overarching like narrative, but then it does really well to sprinkle in like a bunch of like interesting like wackiness and stuff like that across the play.
Yeah. Like the Tales of games on the PS2 era were like that, like Abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And then you had like what else is there from Action Combat? Like Rogue Galaxy. That had like a good narrative to it as well.
It was more, I think, atmospheric, right? And like the environments they were making.
Yeah, they're making really good environments. And the story, like it's not very complex, but it's a fun story though. Like yeah. But I would say like nothing gets to the complexity of Kingdom Hearts.
No.
Well, I mean that's you could make that statement today, and it's just as true as it
holds
was
true.
in the
It's true, yeah. But
yeah, there were a few outliers in the story heavy side of, obviously Tales of and Star Ocean have always been very story heavy,
story forward.
Yeah. And Star
The
Ocean,
games not as
interestingly,
much.
yes, Star Ocean, interestingly, was shares DNA with Tales because it was made by people that broke off from Wolf Studio that made Tales of Fantasia, and then they kind of started on parallel paths.
exactly.
Which I always find to be interesting. But yeah, I don't know.
It is very similar. It's interesting how like similar they are.
Yeah.
Despite them wanting to branch off and do something different, I think they wanted to take more of a sci-fi approach, I guess.
Maybe it was just they wanted to do sci-fi.
They just wanted to do sci-fi because that's where, I guess. I mean, granted, even like in Star Ocean, like it's like part sci-fi with a lot of heavy, like just straight up normal fantasy. Because they always end up on a planet that is just straight up like medieval style.
They wanted their cake and they wanted to eat it too.
Yeah.
That's all
So that's an interesting take on that. But
yeah, I think definitely the PS2 was the start of more dynamic or interesting, I think, mechanics when it came to the action, like combat systems. And maybe it had to do with the environment they could build on, with the 3D kind of models and camera work.
yeah.
But I guess we didn't really see much on the Nintendo side, right? With
not really. No.
like N64, no. GameCube,
No.
not really.
No.
You can count on one hand the number of RPGs, regardless of subgenre, on the
That's so
N64.
true.
What is it? Quest 64, Aiden Chronicle,
Tactics Ogre.
Tactics Ogre, Hybrid Heaven, or Ogre Battle 64.
Ogre Battle 64, sorry.
Hybrid Heaven, I think, is technically RPG adjacent at least. Am I missing any? I don't know. I think that's it.
Maybe that's it. I can't quite remember any other ones.
I bet on the wrong
In
horse that
Xbox,
time.
they had more like Western RPGs, like Fable.
Yeah.
Which,
They have action RPGs and,
yeah, they got action.
there's a lot of
Games.
like games on there that
Did
were
either
like...
of you play Fable? I'm just curious. If you
I played Fable 2.
I did.
Fable 2.
I played 1, 2. I don't think I ever finished 3.
Tell me a little bit about those games in terms of like the style. Are they kind of modeled after a Japanese style, or are they? What's distinct
More
about
Western,
them?
I would say.
What's distinct about them that
Like
makes
you
them
get
more
to choose
Western?
like your path. Like I can only speak for 2. Like it could be good or evil. How you interact with like the people could change like dialogue and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah. It's like a...
so it was kind of on the story front or the story presentation character front.
You're
that it
making a
was
storybook
Western.
Fable. That was kind of the premise.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they pitched it, it sounded way better than it ended up being.
Well, that's Peter
It was
Molyneux,
fun.
right? Like,
Yeah,
that's kinda
exactly. He was all
can't
about
not
pitch.
do that.
I know. he's a great pitch.
He's like Hello Games dialed up to 100.
I enjoyed 2. I don't know.
No, it's still
No,
fun.
people. I think they're pretty universally enjoyed, but it's
Yeah.
like when you compare the finished product to what he said it was going to be, it's like, well, he didn't quite hit that, did he?
No.
Yeah.
I think like the crowd was not very happy because they were pumping him up for some like really interesting like mechanics in terms of like being able to just make the story your own, and then it
Yeah,
kind of
A little overambitious, I think.
yeah,
overambitious.
definitely overambitious. So
That's why I compare him to Hello Games, because they, Hello Games definitely overpromised. They got there. It took them a
Yeah.
few years, but they got there. But it's a similar kind of thing where they just like
I know.
This is going
I'm
to blow
curious.
your mind in every possible way, and then
I'm curious
Anyway.
to see what they do with the new Fable, because I know that's like been pushed and pushed. So
Yep.
I don't know
Be
how far
interesting.
into development hell that might end up being, but it seems to
We'll
be
see.
a
We'll
situation
see.
there.
A lot of Western RPGs coming out from
Yeah.
Microsoft these days. So maybe it's later this year. Who knows?
hopefully they don't get canceled.
Hopefully. I
Yeah.
doubt it. I think poured so much money into it.
Microsoft has been known for some of that. They had that one Scalebound
Oh yeah,
for the Xbox.
I forgot
One,
about
was it?
that. Yeah, that was supposed
That
to.
was that was like a Japanese. That was made by, was it Kamiya, or who was it that was making that?
I forgot who, but I
For some
remember
reason, I'm thinking Kamiya. I'm not.
I can
I'm not
visualize
positive on
the trailer for that.
He was
in
like
my
a cool
head.
bro, and he
Yeah.
had like sunglasses and headphones, and he was riding a dragon.
Yeah, it was like
Very anime.
exactly. I remember
Honestly,
seeing the
not
trailer.
shocked that they canceled it, because I feel like the leadership at Microsoft at the time was probably like, "What is this?"
It'd be funny if
What
they
is
ever
this?
brought that back in some like form, you know?
I feel
It'd be
Might
funny.
as well. Why
not?
Why not? People were really hyped for it. I remember people were super excited. I was indifferent because I didn't have an Xbox, but
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think like, with when it coming back to action RPGs, I don't know, like with how things went with the PS2, I think like leading into the PS3 generation, it kind of like really, all RPGs basically took
Well,
Uh-huh.
kind of like a very,
Nosedive.
there was a dip.
there was a big dip in the PS3 Xbox 360 era. Where funny enough, where Xbox 360 probably shined more than
For the
Oh, it
unique
definitely
stuff, yeah.
did, for especially in the beginning, right?
exactly
You get your Blue Dragons and your Lost Odysseys,
Lost Odysseys and
etc.
the other games that I had, like Infinite
Undiscovered.
Discovery.
and things like that. So like not
that's
everyone
right.
was a hit, but at least they tried.
They were trying.
They were trying with all those. But I think like action RPGs, and I mean we had even Star Ocean at the time too, because like that was I remember being very happy like getting any sort of like RPG. So like when Star Ocean was announced for that, I was like, that's it. This is it. This is the only
Finally.
this is the game I'm going to look forward to. I remember pre-ordering that and been like, I'm getting that day one.
You're talking about the last
Hope, is it?
Last Hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. that one.
Which it was fine. It was like
It was a 360 game first,
yes,
right? And
I
then they
picked
did
it up on the
international.
360
Okay.
initially because it was only on the 360, and so I had one at the time. So I was like, all right, that's it. I played a lot more of my 360 at the time, I guess, minus like Metal Gear Solid on the PS3.
I think Microsoft is being a little wiser with its role-playing spending lately.
Yes.
Because they're financing games and then they're putting them out on everything instead of keeping them on the Xbox, where very few
Yeah.
people.
And marketing them pretty well, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least
they're not
these last
constraining them to the platform that statistically, and I know this upsets people that like RPGs that play Xbox. I'm not dissing Xbox or saying you're bad for playing RPGs on Xbox, but statistically speaking, it's a very small percentage of the audience. So it was always
Yeah,
kind of
sadly.
silly for them to focus on that single platform with those
Yeah.
kind of games, because they just
Well,
didn't
they-
have the audience. For
They
it.
made it that way, you know?
They did, and then they
So-
tried to course correct in the 360 generation, and they just never were able to fully pull it off.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
because
No.
like they couldn't get a foothold in Japan, especially,
Right.
and so like
Yeah.
they just weren't selling in Japan, and so like, now it makes sense for them to like they're funding a bunch of these different types of games that will be bought by players all around the world who are into JRPGs, and
Yeah.
they're
Did
not
you see the
constraining.
Chinese numbers for Expedition 33 recently?
No.
I did not.
They're
Selling.
very happy with it.
Oh,
oh, cool.
I'm all
I
power.
can't quote the number, but it's high.
Power to that team. My God, that game is like it's wild how popular
Yeah.
this game is for like people who
I'm
aren't in
very
the
happy,
JRPG
'cause
space.
It's a good game.
It's gotten really popular with that. But yeah, I mean, where do you want to go with this now? I think we could talk about
Modern, right?
We should talk modern. We started to tiptoe into the PS3 360 era, and I think getting into FromSoft probably makes sense about now, because this is when
There's a shift for sure.
they were really starting
Their
to
influence.
come into their own.
yeah. And I think that's like
they
a
were-
perfect little action RPG.
Yeah, they were always there, right? They had Kingsfield as far back as like the PlayStation.
And
what did Armored Core start?
they did Armored Core.
It was around then too. Yeah,
on the
it was on
PlayStation
the
1.
PS1.
The PS1 had Armored Core. They also did what they actually had a JRPG too. I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah, it was. I have it.
At the shelf.
No, I think it's in storage because it's an Xbox game.
Oh,
It was. I think they also may have released it on PS3,
Enchanted
actually.
Arms.
Enchanted Arms.
That was it. Yes.
I knew it started with an E. Yeah. So anyway, so they've been doing action RPGs, Western style action RPGs forever. Kingsfield is very traditional Western.
Yeah.
It could be Oblivion on a PS1 in some ways, right? And Armored Core, I don't know as much about the gameplay of Armored Core. Is it RPG adjacent or is it just straight action?
it's more action.
You can technically say like make
You
it
build your mech, right?
because like you have stats, so you can like take like you can get parts and like min max your stats and like build certain types of builds. So like it's kind of got that RPG mechanic in that sense. You're not really like, you're not leveling up per se, but you could probably make an argument.
I think so. There are RPG mechanics. So I could say it's
Okay.
so.
But, when Miyazaki, Hidetaka, not
Ghibli
Hayao. Yeah.
for the
When
Ghiblis.
Hidetaka Miyazaki left his like accounting job or whatever he was doing and then went to work at FromSoft and
wild.
became one of the most prolific and beloved video game creators of all time.
Yeah.
How did he do that? It does not make sense to me, but
Good on
putting
him.
out a game like Demon Souls, it's not all that often, right, that an entirely new genre gets created. A subgenre within, say, action RPGs. The Souls-like game is a genre now
Yep.
that other companies
Huge.
make games like. And, Demon Souls was, I think, just a brilliant... I have a really weird relationship with Demon Souls. So I got it. I bought it because I had heard people praising it. And again, this was kind of when I wasn't playing a ton of games, but I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I'll check it out. I didn't get past the first.
It's
area.
hard. It's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard, guys. I also didn't know how to level up. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't figure it out. I wasn't going to read the manual because that's why they got rid of manuals, because people like me never read them. So they're like, what are we putting these in here for? So
Blame Branden, everybody.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Totally blame you.
But then I put it aside, sold it, I think. And years later, I picked up Dark Souls. And for some reason, that clicked for me. I was able to understand it, figure it out, enjoyed it. And then I went back to Demon Souls, and it was just like night and day. I was like, oh, I get this now. I understand how to play these games. And they are challenging. Everybody talks about how hard they are, but they're not like challenging in the way that I think a lot of people think they are.
I think you have to be the right mindset to play them, right?
There's a mindset to it, and it's also a willingness to adapt your tactic or your style, especially in a game as they've gone on. They've gotten better and better at this. And Elden Ring, I think, is the culmination of this type of game where you run into a roadblock and you try a few times to beat it and you keep getting your butt kicked. And then you just go somewhere else. Go leave. No, like in Elden Ring, you just leave. You just go away. You just F off out of there. You just F off out of there, and you go somewhere else and find something else to do. You find something else.
Like, you got to keep trying. Branden's like, no, F off.
She was being a team player, and I did not yes and her.
All right.
But you go off and you find a bunch of cool gear, and maybe you adjust your specs as you level up, and then you come back to the thing that was beating your butt. Yeah, exactly. Sure, they're full circle. That's how you persevere, is by changing tacks, and that's brilliant. And you could always do that, right? You could always do that in Souls games, even before Elden Ring. It's just on a smaller scale, right?
Yeah.
Demon Souls, you were kind of more limited in where you could go.
Yeah.
But it was always kind of the same sort of thing. So that really introduced not just the normal Souls-like mechanics that we think of in that subgenre of action RPGs, you know, dying and leaving your experience points where you died and having to retrieve them and all that stuff. But also, like, it kind of revolutionized the gameplay by giving you so many different ways to go about these difficult tasks, and kind of creating your own difficulty based on how stubborn you are going to be to sticking with the same thing that's clearly not working.
Yeah.
Like, you might be able to beat it eventually if you keep banging your head against that wall, but like, you're going to have a bloody head. Like, maybe try something else, you know?
Oh, that's so true. But yeah, those games, like, honestly, when I played Demon Souls. I didn't beat Demon Souls at the time, but I did play it. And I remember getting my butt kicked consistently. And the same thing, like with you, is like when I finally played Dark Souls for the first time, it kind of clicked for me as well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, like I get what they're trying to do with these mechanics. Like,
it must have been that it was the same mechanics, just better explained.
Yeah.
Because I went back and it was basically 1-to-1 with Demon Souls, right?
Exactly. I think Demon Souls just didn't explain it right, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like a new concept of like
Probably
style.
just dropped you in.
Yeah, it wasn't like a
Figure
game
it
that
out.
really held your hand with anything. Like, it just kind of threw you in. You kind of had to figure it out. And so at the time, I was just like, I don't know. This is getting a little too frustrating. But yeah, with like, you know, and, you know, reaching to Elden Ring at this point, it's like, man, that game is perfect. And it's, you know, it is an action RPG. You know, we don't want to put JRPG nomenclature to that because it's really doesn't feel like it.
No, it's a
quite.
Western RPG.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's definitely more Western. I mean, you got George R.R. Martin doing Elden Ring's lore instead of writing his book.
Anything to get away from that computer. I get it.
The man is all vibes. But
It's funny, well, just as a quick aside, it's funny how he was like super involved in the lore of Elden Ring, but it's basically just the lore of Dark Souls. Like, there's there's like almost perfect parallels between everything in Elden Ring and everything in Dark Souls. It's like, what did you really do, buddy? Did you really do
You just gave him his name.
I think he was just
He used my
chilling.
name.
Yeah, I don't think he's just like hanging out. He's like trying to make excuse to why he doesn't have to work on his book.
Oh, I can't. I'm too busy with Elden Ring stuff.
But then
It's
they
just got,
find
like, a
him
Word
like sitting in
document,
his
like, 2
room, just like
pages.
hanging out, watching like something. It's just like,
Yeah, he's watching Toradora on Crunchyroll. Loving it. Great show, by the way.
Of course. It is.
I'm just.
I read
trying to
all the
picture
light
him.
novels. I just want to tell you how much I like Toradora.
Oh, you
I
did?
read all the freaking light novels.
I'm just trying to picture George R. R. Martin sitting in a room, like just kind of giggling, watching Toradora to himself.
Buying the bunny figure.
Yeah, just like picturing that man.
No, the
He probably
tiger
likes it.
one.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Tiger
Though.
one.
Yeah,
It's a tiger bunny
he probably
girl.
likes it. He probably likes
Yeah.
it. It's a good show. I highly recommend it.
But
yeah.
but the Dark Souls influence, I think we saw a lot of those same mechanics come into the JRPG, like action RPG space, with more emphasis
Yeah.
maybe on parrying and blocking, right, and some more difficulty spikes in some ways.
yeah,
Yeah.
Or do you guys disagree? Maybe or agree? Okay.
No, I agree. I think that action RPGs that are more of a JRPG bent have amped up the difficulty. I think they've generally been pretty good about having difficulty options to give you a path forward if you don't want to get super
true.
good, which I appreciate because I don't have infinite time. So yeah, I think they have gotten harder, and I think a lot of that is attributable to the FromSoft influence for sure.
Yeah, and I can't remember like because I know Ys has always had like in the more recent Ys coming from like PS2, like it's very like boss, like the boss battles are, you know, pretty difficult, challenging
Pretty
in
epic.
terms of like, you know, having to dodge and do things like that to kind of like get
Do
through
the right
things.
timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a lot of timing based on that, and I'm not. I feel like they did that maybe a little bit before. Was it before FromSoft, or was that something that came about in the E series post FromSoft?
I played
can't
all these
remember.
games in such quick succession. I don't know where they fall on the timeline of game history.
I
Like the
can't-
original Oath of Fagano stuff definitely had timing.
Yeah,
Which was itself a remake of 3, but I don't think it had much. It had nothing to do gameplay wise
No.
with 3. So
No.
yeah, but that was PSP era, right? When that came out originally. So
Yeah, so around the same time, maybe. As
Yeah.
Demon Souls. Maybe. I don't know.
a little
Yeah.
before, yeah, because Demon
slightly
Souls
before, I would say.
was early PS3,
Yeah.
early-ish
Okay.
PS3.
I think to me, like getting into like ease, like at this point, like it's like one of my favorite style of like action RPG.
I think a lot of people love Ys 8. Like, they think that is like the pinnacle of action
Yeah.
JRPG.
Because it like you get a lot of JRPG like or just action RPGs that play a little like slower. And so it doesn't feel like it's like a step.
Sounds fluid.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a step behind like playing an action game. So like you when you play like an action game, let's say like Devil May Cry or anything like that, you get these like
Bayonetta or something,
Bayonetta, you get these fluid like action sequences, and then you get to like
it's just so smooth to go through.
exactly, and then you get like an action RPG, and then you're like, it's a little more clunky in the mix there.
More static, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like where you have these motions you have to do, not necessarily like a bunch of sequences that feel like you're actually, in the midst of battling.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like with
way.
ease, like the way they kind of incorporate like just the speed of what you're doing with your attacks, but also like how you can kind of quickly jump into combos and things like that. And it also plays into like the RPG mechanics there. It's just, they figured out such a fun formula to make it like very fast paced and like, like still have that like almost JRPG vibe to it.
Yeah, and having like hot buttons
Yeah.
to use your special attacks and things, which to be fair, the Tales of games
Have been
were
doing that for
forever.
yeah, like exactly.
Right. But but still like incorporating elements like that to make it more fast paced. Like you're not going into menus, you're not digging around for stuff. You're
not having this, screen with the battle,
Exactly.
and this alternative like pocket dimension that's happening.
right.
It's just right there on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really kind of like owns the action part of the RPG. I feel like they kind of take that.
Yeah. And it's not hack and slash, which I wanted to kind of get into. How
yeah.
We should talk
a lot
about
of people perceived hack and slash as action RPGs for a long time. Like, I think when Kingdom Hearts first came out, a lot of people described that as a hack and slash because you could basically button mash your way through the game if you wanted.
Yeah.
But I think there's a distinction between hack and slash and a more kind of skillful way to play around with the mechanics of an action RPG.
Yeah.
Where that lies, though, or that fine line, I can't really say.
Yeah,
Guys
it's
maybe have
the every rectangle or every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square sort of thing.
Could be
where-
rhombus.
Yeah. Where you have your hack and slash games are definitely, a lot of the times they're action RPGs, but it's not like being able to hack and slash is not what defines an action RPG. It's not in the Kingdom Hearts example. You certainly could hack and
It's not
slash your way
advisable for
through
higher
that game.
difficulty.
Yeah. Like if you are
Yeah.
very patient and willing to grind and just put up with not being very good at the game and just hack and slash your way through it.
Yeah.
You could. And I think that is the case for a lot of action RPGs is you technically could if you are
Same
very
thing
patient.
for Final Fantasy 16, I think.
Yeah, hack and slash
Yeah.
your way through it. But it's not the right way to play it. It's not the most fun way to play it. It's not the intended way to play it.
Yeah. You can get away with it and you're not going to get
like
the
there's
true.
some games that's appropriate. Like we talked about, I think Muso games at the start of this, where
Oh yeah.
that's basically hack and slashing, right?
Yeah. It's
I
hack
guess
and
there's maybe
slash.
some strategy of like where on the map you are, but
Yeah. And I know with like some of them you can like level up your like equipment and things like that if you use it more. So it's got like that perspective, but you basically hack and slash your way through.
But that, yeah, you turn your brain off. I think that's the appeal for those games, right?
And like,
Just
and it,
decimate an army.
I always found it interesting when you had like games like, there's some like Star Ocean. I say Star Ocean Till the End of Time on PS2. You can get through that game with hack and slashy, like for the most part, but then there's always going to be like a boss that is like going to be like a wall that you'll hit, and you realize that like, oh wait, like I've not learned this mechanics of this game, and I should have
I
learned
should have
it.
been getting good at this game while I was playing.
Like, and like it would just be like a sudden spike in difficulty where it's like the boss is expecting you to be able to beat it. You need to know all the mechanics and be able to like take advantage of that. And then you just get hit that boss and then you are just slaughtered.
Do we feel like that's done a lot nowadays? Because I feel like that was a very PS2 era design thing where you could just hit these walls where if you hadn't learned all the systems, you were just screwed and you had to kind of start over, or, you know, you couldn't really grind your way through some things. I feel like nowadays it's much more, nobody wants to turn away a player, turn off a player. And so
they give you the easy mode if you want.
They give you the easy, like, oh, let's reduce the difficulty to easy, or let's not even have a boss where you have to have perfected X, Y, or Z mechanic in order to be able to beat it.
Yeah, or do the timing correctly.
If it's a timing or a skill type thing that you have to be good at, right? And maybe I'm sure there are some that still do that. I just can't think of as many off the top of my head.
Yeah,
that are more modern.
With like modernity at this point, like you got a lot of like accessibility options for people who maybe don't have reflexes that can handle a lot of like twitchy gameplay. And so I think it's good that it's an option there. I think it's a good feature for everyone to have. Like whether you take advantage of that yourself is up to you.
And I think it also gives you the ability for players who want, you know, those sort of mechanics to be really, you know, shown in the game by upping their difficulty level where you have to.
I think that's great. I am all in favor of whatever accessibility options are going to be helpful to people to experience and enjoy a game. 100% put them in there. I do. What I'm more thinking about though is from a core design perspective, are games being designed more so that they don't have those kind of difficulty spikes?
I think so.
I think with grinding too, they kind of get around that. Where if you're high enough level, you don't necessarily need that.
And I think like
for example, going back to Expedition 33, you could have parried and dodged everything, but you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're high enough level,
you can brute strength your way through everything.
You could,
if you are high enough. But like, I feel like it's something that's also like a learned lesson from developers over time, because in the PS2 era, I think you get a lot of, well, like leading up to the PS2 era and even the PS3 era, there's just like a lot of like, it's kind of like the scale of difficulty shifts constantly. So like you'll have like a very simple game and then all of a sudden a shift in difficulty will happen, and then you are not either
exponential,
you're not leveled up enough or like something along those lines, and you'll hit, like, I remember the first time I played like the Star Ocean Till the End of Time, I got to the boss and then realized that like the boss was so hard and I wasn't leveled up enough, and I was stuck in the dungeon where I couldn't level. Like there was no place for me to heal and stuff like that. So I couldn't just sit there and grind it. And so like I, at the time, had to just like put the game away and just say, I'll come back to it or replay the game later.
I kind of experienced some of that with Fantasian this past year. Neo Dimension. It's definitely old school in that sense where fortunately you're not ever truly trapped where you can't progress until you beat a particular boss. I mean, you can always find places to grind and heal. It's not like, you know, where you're stuck in a dungeon or something. But there's,
I feel like this was, or sorry, go ahead.
No, good.
I was going to say, I feel like getting trapped like at like a difficulty scale where you can't get out of, a lot of that was in tactics games like in the past.
For sure.
Especially with characters that die off, or just you don't have the right level for certain characters.
Right. If it's a permadeath thing, or if you're not able to access random battles or whatever to grind. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
It could be, defeating. They made those a lot easier, I think, in modernity.
Or if you're me and you just don't grind in tactical RPGs and then you give up because it's too hard.
It's true.
I don't want to grind.
Grinding in strategy games, if they don't make
That's why
easy
I like
for
Fire
you,
Emblem. I like Fire Emblem because I don't feel like you ever have to do that. I never feel like I have to grind. I feel like
no, you could in some of them.
You certainly could, and I'm sure on higher difficulties you probably need to. But on normal mode, the two that I've played, right? I'm not an expert, but the two that I've played,
you don't need
I can just progress without having to grind, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. But like leading into, I mean, nowadays, so you have like, let's say the Final Fantasy series has shifted into an action RPG kind of perspective. everyone keeps talking about like, well, with Expedition 33, it was Final Fantasy. Like, are they going to learn their lesson? Are they going to realize that action, like RPG games or turn-based games are back? And like, I don't
know. Rebirth did pretty well last year.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Rebirth is the perfect, like that is like a perfect kind of mix of action, with RPG elements. Cause you are like pausing and you are like shifting your strategies as you're going through the game. And even in battles and stuff like that. I think they did a good job of mixing in like Rebirth.
I think the battle system in the remake trilogy, Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy, is the perfect evolution of Kingdom Hearts because it's Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
It's the Kingdom Hearts battle system. It's it's basically Nomura's battle system, right? And I think it's pretty much the perfect evolution of that, and it's as close to a perfect, in my mind, action RPG system that exists. So I'm very much a fan of what they're doing there. I'm less of a fan of the direction of 16.
Yeah.
And that is maybe more because I think that 16 is less of an action RPG and more of an action
game with light RPG mechanics.
Certainly, but I mean, kind of every game has light RPG elements nowadays. Madden has light RPG elements.
That's accurate.
It's so ubiquitous among video games that it's almost given, right?
Yeah,
it's going to have some RPG elements.
A skill tree, something's there.
Skill trees and even experience points, leveling up, whatever.
Yeah.
So 16 is really, it's an action game designed by the Devil May Cry dude. Yeah. And I think it's fun. I had a good time with it. I don't regret playing it. I had a good time with it.
For the most part.
I enjoyed the story.
I felt depressed after beating it.
I felt extremely depressed. And I didn't play any video games for like a week after I finished it.
I think it was 2 weeks for me. It was awful.
Yeah, I remember we were both like going through that depression at the same time.
It's not a happy moment.
It's not a great. I didn't like the ending. I'll just be real.
I was really salty.
Not a fan. But
I had such high expectations. But
yeah. But it's fine. People get upset about Final Fantasy 16 being an action game. Oh, it's the tradition of. It's like, okay. I mean, yeah. Final Fantasy has traditionally been JRPGs, except when it hasn't been.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 11 is an MMO. Final Fantasy 14 is an MMO. So this is not unheard of for a Final Fantasy mainline game to not be a JRPG. It's happened before. It'll probably happen again. I would love to see 17, whatever it ends up being, return to more of the JRPG-ness. I'm not even necessarily saying it has to be turn-based. Although if they wanted to do that, cool. But they don't have to. They can. There's so much. Like I did a video a couple of years ago now, I think. Well, I guess it couldn't have been a couple of years ago because it was comparing Rebirth to 16. So a year or so ago. Comparing Rebirth and 16 and making the argument that if you want to look for like a good, marketable, fun future for Final Fantasy, I feel like Rebirth is a much better direction to take it than 16. Now, I would also not object to, like I said, turn-based. If they wanted to pull it even farther in that direction, go turn-based. Cool, fine.
Yeah,
let them do it. But the straight up action route, minimizing the RPG, is not as appealing to me.
I wish they would take a piece from the book of like Daybreak, and find or like Metaphor and those. I think more Daybreak, I would say. Where you have like a distinct
Daybreak 2.
Yeah, Daybreak 2, where you have a distinct like action style gameplay which shifts, which is kind of like I think Final Fantasy VII Remake tried to do. If they committed more to the turn-based side, they kind of just made it like easy mode, where you just like it just plays for you. Like if they went like full on and just said like, yeah, you can just turn it into a turn-based game, I feel like that's what they should do to kind of appease. Like, I don't know who they're trying to appease. Like either their shareholders want like action combat, so they could be like, hey, we give you action combat, but like the people also want this. So like, can we just meet in the middle and do that? I feel like it would be
I think
good.
that would just be a fun concept to see Final Fantasy tackle, you know?
I
Just
know.
try something new.
It's
Because they always have something new usually.
exactly. Right? They always try to like push the boundaries a little bit and like add a lot more to each of the games.
Since 10, they've always done something new. 10 was the start of no two games in a row having the same systems at all.
And it's been years since 10.
Prior to that, it was pretty consistent. The first 3 were turn-based, the next 6 were ATB, and then 10 was turn-based, and then everything else, like whatever, throw it at the wall. I don't know. I would really the idea of a Daybreak style Final Fantasy that's amazingly appealing to me.
Yeah,
I would love that because I love and let's go ahead and just talk about Trails while we're here. You know, introducing the action combat system to Daybreak is
flawless.
It's so good.
Perfection.
It's such a smart idea.
Yes.
To give you that choice, right? You have the option of, I think the only way it could be better is if you also had the option of action fighting the bosses. Because that's the one thing is you can't fight the bosses.
You have one moment.
There's like there's one moment maybe, but that's generally speaking, you are forced into
turn-based.
You can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
So I think that would be cool if they would expand that further. But regardless, I think for standard combat, having that as an option, it's such a cool, what a great idea.
I know.
What a great idea.
And I feel like it fits my game play style. Like for bosses and things, I like the turn-based aspect because it lets me sit down and strategize against this boss because they usually have specific weaknesses or something like that. I need to figure out all my what all my teammates are doing. And when you have action combat is perfect for when you're just streamlining through a dungeon and you're trying to get through this dungeon, or you just want to grind it out a little bit, get some levels. It just makes things so much easier to get through.
Agreed. Metaphor, I think they pushed it a little bit too much where you had to farm.
Yeah.
Stuff that was a little tedious.
And it wasn't true action.
No.
It was
just hitting once.
It was action to a point until you were always going to go into a turn-based battle with the vast majority of it.
Yeah. It's at
least in the limited amount of Metaphor I've played.
Yeah. It's like getting a sneaky hit on an enemy in another game beforehand where you hit them and then you get into the battle.
It's like the slightly elevated version of that. Slightly elevated.
Slightly more.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's where I think that's a good balance. Daybreak was a good balance of both of those aspects of you have
two. So I think 2's a lot better.
Yeah.
Did it so much better than for her.
It's true. I mean, 1 is still
Daybreak
good.
1 was a great proof of concept for the idea. Daybreak 2 really refined a lot.
Exactly. Daybreak 2's battle system is near perfection. It's so good. And it does so many things right. And because it has everything that you'd want out of a Trails game. From a turn-based perspective, you can be as strategic as you want and have fun with positioning and how you use your orbments and things like that. And then at the same time, you can just kind of hack and slash and dodge your way through action combat.
And let's craft it.
Exactly. So it's just so it kind of tickles both of your brains in the RPG world.
Yeah. It gave you variety, which I really appreciated. And even in 2, you're able to do magic on the field, which is a nice addition.
Yes.
I haven't looked up what the combat's going to be and Beyond the Horizon, but I'm really excited for that this fall.
I don't want to look it up.
And whatever the new game will be.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in the remake of Sky, you have more special moves that you can do during action combat. So it seems like that's even then the next logical evolution of that type of action gameplay. So that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm excited to see how, because that game will play.
I'm so excited, you guys. I'm sorry. Second. I'm so excited. Let's fucking this.
We're all so excited.
Chills in the sky.
We're so close to that.
Every
first
now
game.
and then I just get hit with it. It's coming out.
Every once in a while I'll come across the pre-order, something about pre-ordering. And I'm just sitting there going oh yeah, that's.
I've already got it.
Releasing March for it.
Amazon.
So teasing it.
I'm gonna get it digitally. I think on PC at first, and then buy the.
I'm going to have to see what this collector edition looks like.
Yeah,
and how much
I'm on the
for
fence
it.
about
I'm
it now
waiting.
because I bought that bracer pack from Pinbox.
Oh yeah.
And if like it's largely similar stuff, I may just be like, forget it. Like I don't need a $300 collector's edition as well.
No.
That's going to take
come out
a year
in a year
to come out. Yeah.
At least.
I know. It's going to take forever.
Other holdups, maybe longer.
Yeah, who knows? A year at minimum, right? So
that's so true.
That's fine. I mean, if there's some cool stuff in there, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get it. But like,
I don't know. I'll just save my money for scales because scales are coming out.
I just feel like
Estelle and Joshua with their first outfits.
That would be cool.
That'd be cool.
And
yeah,
Nintendos maybe.
I don't know. I gotta have it all. So I'm just gonna have a choice. I gotta have it all.
This is his Pokemon.
This is my Pokemon.
It sounds like mine too. Actually,
Got to catch them all.
I might be a little worse than you, actually.
I mean, as you look behind you, as I'm staring at like your screen, and
yeah, didn't you just have like a giant haul of like shirts and stuff?
I had a big haul of stuff. I got the new art book.
I mean, it's going to be your last haul for a while, so
I say that.
I mean,
we'll see.
Depending on how things go.
I won't hold you to it. / I will encourage you to buy more.
I mean, that's what we do here. We just we aggressively encourage.
Aggressive enabling. That's what my wife said. She's like, I listened to you guys in the car, and it's like you guys are just sitting there like shouting, "You don't have to buy it." You guys are just telling each other to buy stuff.
It's really you know what? It's healthy. It's fine.
We can't do this with. It's only Trails we really do this with, and Xeno. I think those are just
we're not like everything.
Nothing
buy
else.
everything.
No.
Like there's just some things.
I'm sure I've said many times, do not buy that.
It's true.
I also got that Ys. Speaking of action RPGs, to bring it back, I also got that Ys 8 novel kit.
Oh yeah.
Novel.
Whatever it is, with the
all the
Tales
stories stuff.
Yeah. Which I think that was like originally a digital pre-order bonus for certain stores or something for the book. But it's cool that they're putting it out physically and have all that cool stuff in there. Like that picture, the painting that the guy makes in Ys 8. It's so bad.
No. Yeah. I was thinking about getting that, but I need to be careful.
No, of course. I don't have as much Ys material.
Yeah.
I kind of want to have more of it. If I'm not going to collect
I have
scales,
Donna coming. She's going to be here sometime this week.
Oh yeah, you are getting that. I definitely want to get the book though, because I have like the other book and I do enjoy the tales and the books that come with that. So I'll probably get that for my shelf. But I don't know if I need all the other things right now. Probably not.
Do we need any of it?
Wait, honestly.
Do we need any of it?
No, we don't need any of all of it. But do we want it? Yes.
I could have a much more substantial savings right now if I was if I didn't have any interests.
If you had no hobbies, Branden,
you would just travel.
Yeah,
spend it there.
That would probably I'd probably actually spend more money if we just traveled. If that was like our only
and eat out, lots of food.
It's I mean, you got to find a balance of both.
I think so.
And I feel like we have, because Jen's much more the traveler, and I'm much more the home stayer.
Homebody.
You can't take
things. I mean, she's very much a homebody, but she's paradoxically needs to travel too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, but I'm the purchaser of things. I like stuff.
Yeah.
I like to get shiny things and bring them to my nest. You know.
It's true. I mean, you can't take your money with you. Granted, you can't take the stuff with you either. So I don't know.
The thing is, when you're going to Japan, you're going to have lots of stuff available to you to bring back.
We've already decided we're going to get a big box and ship it back, whatever we buy. So,
you might want to look into suitcase options instead.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this in the after show because this is.
We should talk about in the after show.
Yeah, that's
but anyway,
good information.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked a lot about action RPGs in this episode.
Yeah,
we did.
Anything else, you guys? I feel like we did a good history there, right? Where we started, where action RPGs are kind of ending up, along with how it's been influencing some turn-based games.
I feel like we meandered through the history of it, and we
touched on most of the major points. I think we should probably not skip over talking a little bit about Platinum as far as Nier Automata goes. Being one of the most
Incredible.
astonishingly good
Yeah.
action RPGs of the last
For
10, 15 years.
Platinum's also, dabbled in other RPG adjacent games like Astral Chain.
Astral
Yep.
Chain. It's a game.
Maybe they'll do more, even though I think I saw the Astral Chain director leave Platinum.
I think
Recently.
I think I read that the other
They're
day.
bleeding talent over there. It's kind of a
Something,
shame.
yeah. Platinum Games
It's not
is spiraling right now, unfortunately.
So they're great. I hesitate to even bring it up because it's a cliche, but Harvestella is an action RPG. I would say that the action elements are like the least
Lacking.
they're like the most lacking part of it. So
it's an
not
action RPG in the sense of like old school action RPGs.
It's a lot more of the stiff
is.
kind of old school action RPG,
Which isn't
It's
a bad
the other
thing.
elements. It's the other elements of it that I like. It's not the combat that I'm
Emily.
as big of a fan of, but it's an action RPG. So
Yeah.
just mention it during the action RPG show.
Is that your RuneScape like character attack?
It is whacking the rat.
animation? Like whacking the rat.
That sounds like a euphemism. Anyway, thank you so much for
On that note,
thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. As always,
Yes,
we are
we
very appreciative
appreciate
of you.
all of you.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot more to talk about, I think, in our after show for our Pursuer level members.
So
If you want to stick around to our yapping.
yeah, so
It'll be fun.
come on over.
Yeah, and I guess until next week. Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.